Hello and welcome back to the channel. A few of you guys will realise that I don't normally do a video for Saturdays, but this one I felt was so important that I couldn't let it slide. And if I was you, I'd go make yourself a cup of tea, get yourself a seat and sit down for this one, because it is quite a biggie. Right, so a while back I said my concerns were that in 2030, 2035, around that sort of time, that Britain possibly could bring in camper van and motorhome bans all together. And a lot of guys on Facebook laughed at me. They said I was tinfoil hat material and I was a complete lunatic. Would it surprise you then that the first country in Europe have brought in a complete motorhome ban? Yeah. Greece brought in a stealth law in January 2025. They'd never made it public. They hid it. But they brought the law in. And it only came to light a few days ago when 3 motorhome users were fined for stopping in their motorhomes. This is not about overnight parking. This is not about being parked on illegal land. This is about motorhome owners stopping on public land. Not even public land, on public highways, public car parks, on private land even. Right, so let me go over what I'm talking about here. The Greek government brought in a law that says you cannot stop in your motorhome or camper van or caravan. Yeah, that's right. You cannot even stop. You cannot get out your vehicle. You cannot park. It's the law. The law says that if you do stop, park, get out your vehicle, you'll be fined either €300 or face 3 months in prison. It's almost unbelievable, but I'm going to put a link below so you can read it yourself. Don't take my word for it. Read it yourself. So what does that mean for us? Now, I brought in these protests to guard against that, to try and get support, because I was concerned that these sort of laws are coming our way, and I still believe they are. A lot of you guys have said, don't worry about it, forget it, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I think I do, and this is the first sign that my concerns are actually starting to come true. Maybe not in this country, but Greece has brought forward their plans to totally ban van life altogether. So if you're thinking about going to Greece in your motorhome or camper van, you can scrap that idea, unless you're going to drive straight through the country without stopping. So what do we do about it? What can we do about it? How do we guard against it happening in this country? How do we keep our motorhomes? I mean, when I think about it, this is my home. This is where I live. People have become too overconfident that their freedom, they will just keep it without having to fight for it or do anything to keep it. That it's just what you've got. And you are all just sitting there, watch it being taken away from you by councils all around the country, stopping you from parking. It's up to us now to actually do something about it. If we don't do something about it now, it'll be too late in the future, like the Greeks have found. Once the law comes in, It will be very hard to get rid of it, very hard to change it. So all those owners of camper vans and caravans and motorhomes in Greece can no longer use them. They can't even park two on private land. So if you want to support us in future protests, I suggest that you firstly subscribe to the channel and try and make some effort to get to the next protest if we protest again, because without your support we won't be protesting again. We need the campervan community support to protest. It's no good doing it with a small number. We need bigger numbers. Nearly 50 vans turned up last time. We need to double, treble, quadruple that. Now, a few people have asked me to arrange a protest at the Drove down at Stonehenge in Wiltshire. And I do have my concerns about that. And some of you are really going to hate what I've got to say on that. But I've got to say, I've got to be honest, and I've got to tell you what I think and the difficulties I have with bringing that protest. Firstly, the Drove isn't closed. It's having roadworks, repairs. That's what the council says anyway. Now, I myself believe that when the council have finished the roadworks, they would by then have got a legal road closure put in place and to permanently close the road. That's what I think personally. But until we actually know, until they put forward their plans to do so, at the moment it's just a road closure for repairs. The Drove is meant to open up on the 6th of June and it will close again on the 12th of June for solstice. If it will reopen after that, I don't know. But one of the biggest issues here, and I've got to say this is not my feelings. If it was down to me, people would be able to enjoy their life and go and park for as long as they like, where they like, as long as it was within reason. But some of you guys that park down on the Drove are my friends. And some of you park there for a bloody long time. You don't move. You get there in your camper van and you sit there for months on end. And you expect the councils and the locals to not notice. ANPR cameras go down the Drove almost every day. I've seen them myself. I've watched them. If they're not going down there with ANPR cameras, you get a couple of coppers in a car go through and start writing registration numbers. So they are monitoring who's there and how long. It's a roadside. You're supposed to be parked up for a short amount of time overnight, a couple of nights, fair enough. But to set up house down there and encampments, you're not going to keep getting away with it, unfortunately. Now, I'm like I said, this is not my fault. This is the way that you keep the councils, you keep the government off your back. And it keeps them off of our back as well, everyone's back. Because as soon as you start getting noticed, the whole of van life gets noticed. They start picking on everyone. So, do we bring a protest to Wiltshire? Yeah, we can do that. But is the fight going to be over a road closure? Is the fight going to be about overnight parking? Or is it going to be about setting up encampments? I would find it very difficult to take an argument to the council for somebody's right to camp for as long as they like on a public highway, or a byway in this case. How do I go to the council and say, look, we just want to park there because we're happy there and we want to park there for the rest of our life? That's a very hard thing for me to go to the council and try and convince them into accepting. They're not going to accept that, unfortunately. And I'll say it again, I've said it a couple of times already, this is not my argument. But for me to bring a protest, I've got to be putting forward some ideas about what we want to achieve. And what I want to achieve is for the nomadic lifestyle, for our freedom to continue. It's not the freedom to be able to do as we please, as in go and take over somebody's field and live there for the rest of my life. I can't do that. That's not going to be acceptable in anyone's eyes. So to be able to go and take over a byway and live there for the rest of your life, that's not going to be acceptable in the council's eyes either. So I can't take that to the council. You need to put forward some ideas about how we do this. I mean, even I can see that the council is not going to accept people just parking for as long as they like there for free. If I went to the council and said, okay, we want facilities put in place somewhere in Wiltshire, it's not going to be on the drove. It's not going to be what you actually want, and there will be a cost to it. So for a lot of full-time van lifers, it's not even going to suit your needs. And this is where I need some sort of help on how I bring a protest, how I go about approaching the council and saying, look, we want this road kept open. We want to be able to park. And they're going to come back to me and say, well, you're not just parking there, you're living there full time. How do I fight that? That's my argument. That's what I'm sitting here thinking about. How do I support you guys? It's not about me saying you're doing wrong. I'm asking you, how do I support that? How do I support that in front of a council? Right, so the news on Greece, pretty bad actually. And yeah, I do see it coming to this country if we don't do something about it, unfortunately. I'll leave you with that. Again, put it in your comments, put it in the comments below. Give me some suggestions. Give me your thoughts. And don't hate me for saying that being parked up for 3, 6, 9 months is the wrong thing to do. Because if it was my choice, I would like you to be able to just go and come as you please. But it's not my choice. I don't get to choose this. I can only put forward your suggestions and your ideas. And I can't bring a protest without having something in my pocket to defend you with. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening.